Hello, I'm Harry Cole, political editor of The Sun. Rachel Reeves is going for growth. Big speech today, lining out how the government's going to get it out of the mess some people say it created themselves. Joining me today is Rachel Reeves' deputy, I think we can call him, Chief Secretary of Treasury, Darren Jones. Darren, you're not at the speech, but we've just watched it. Look, this government has spent the last 6 months talking down Britain. And now you've pulled the screeching U-turn. Rachel Reeves is saying everything's brilliant, we're going gangbusters, it's going to be great. Who's this new Chancellor? Where's she been for the last 6 months?
Oh, Harry, look, when we came into government, there was a huge mess. We had to tidy it up. We had to be honest with people about that, and we've tidied it up.
But have you tidied it up then?
Yeah, we did. That's why it was a big budget in the autumn. You know, we had to fix all of the £22 billion black hole that we inherited.
Growth is flatlining, and you know, this is clearly a reset designed to sort of kick-start it.
It's not a reset. Growth has always been the first mission of this Labour government. It was in the manifesto. We talked about it endlessly during the campaign. And this is the government getting on with it. I mean, this is, you know, what we were elected to deliver. This is the change we promised the country.
Can you see the contradiction, though, between this speech today, which was, you know, all smiles, and the doom and gloom and direness of emergency press conferences and standing in the Downing Street garden saying we're in a doom loop and a black hole? You can see the contradiction between this message and what this government has spent the last 6 months spooking people with.
Well, look, when we came into office, we had to be honest with the public and the markets about what we had found. There was no case for us.
It up a bit, though, didn't you?
No, it was just being a frank assessment about the mess that we had. The last lot kind of covered it up. They didn't want to talk about it. They didn't talk about the in-year spending problems. They knew it was just going to be our problem, essentially, coming into government. And that's why we had to be honest and deal with it, which is what we've done. But this is us delivering our promise of change.
Lots of big reforms, you know, Heathrow, let's go, new runway, planning, you know, being watered down. Do you really think that people are going to believe that Keir Starmer, you know, the technocratic lawyer that he is, and Rachel Reeves, you know, she's made a big deal about her past. Are these people really in politics to be great supply-side reformers like a la Thatcher? Do you think people are actually going to buy this?
Well, they're definitely reformers.
Are they?
Yeah, and I'm definitely one. And
are you?
Yeah, what does that mean? It means
what does it mean?
It means you're willing to take the difficult decisions, to be bold, to push things through, even when there's controversy, because in the grand scheme of things, that's the right thing to do for the country. And that's exactly what we're doing. We heard time and time again from investors, there is plenty of money to be invested in this country. This is a brilliant country. Investors like investing here, but nothing could get done, nothing could get built.
Why didn't you say that at the beginning then? Why did you spend so much time sort of talking down the country and scaring everyone, basically? Look at consumer confidence, it's in the toilet.
Well, I mean, I've been saying that for years. And I said
let you on here more then,
I'd be delighted to come back more often.
So you're saying this isn't a reset, right?
Definitely not.
But come on, this is a completely different Chancellor than we've seen for so far.
It's the Chancellor I know very well, and it's the Chancellor who's been working on this for a long time in opposition through the election campaign and coming into government, now getting on with the job.
But growth is flatlining. You took the fastest growing... we had the fastest growing economy in the G7 at the beginning of 2024, and by the end of it, we were bumping around with zero growth. That was the actions of your government, not anyone else, right?
Well, so a couple of things there, right? What you mustn't do, and we mustn't do it either, is get hooked on like the last quarter of data.
Well, the last two quarters have been pretty shocking,
which is what the last government did. You've got to look at the long-term growth trajectory for the country. Things move around as they always do.
You weren't saying that when the other guys were in charge, though, were you?
No, I have, because actually, if you look at the long-term trajectory under the Tories, it was rubbish for 14 years. It was flatlining the whole time. And yes, there was COVID and those issues, which, you know, was unavoidable. But even before that, the growth trajectory for this country wasn't good because nothing could get built. I mean, that's the kind of core argument the Chancellor's making today.
So the Chancellor's good. She's making this argument. It's new exciting potential for Britain. Do you accept that you've been in the Treasury since July the 4th? Have you made any mistakes as a government so far?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know. I can't think of any mistakes I'm willing to...
Let's go through a few of them, shall we?
Okay, you tell me.
Let's have a look at the charge sheet.
Yeah, go on.
No, right, one speech doesn't growth make. Let's look at the context. So, in the election, you kind of had you barely really had a sort of tax policy that you were willing to share, other than boxing yourself in on the big three, on VAT, on NICs and income tax. That was just sort of your memorable policy. Was that a mistake to box yourselves in? Or could you have been a little bit more honest with voters about what was actually coming down the line?
It wasn't a question about honesty, because we nor you knew the state of public finances, because nobody knew. I mean, the Office of Budget Responsibility confirmed that. The only people that knew were Conservative ministers that were hiding it. But look, you say we boxed ourselves in. Look, it's made life harder for us. That's no denying that. But we made a clear promise in the middle of a cost of living crisis to people at home, which was a Labour government is not going to increase the income tax or national insurance you pay on your wages every month, or VAT that you pay in the shops.
But you didn't quite say that, didn't you? The manifesto says we will not put up national insurance.
On working people. People who go to work who get a pay slip. I think it's quite obvious.
But that is kind of mealy-mouthed, isn't it?
No,
you weren't saying it at the time. You weren't saying at the time, oh, by the way, that obviously means it's on wage. We reserve the right to put it up on wages.
Go back and get my clips from the media rounds. You'll see me say, what is a working person? It's a person that goes to work and gets a pay slip.
Well, you literally said in the manifesto national insurance was sacred. Another thing you said you wouldn't do. Yeah. All right, well, another thing you said you wouldn't do is hit farmers and their inheritance tax changes. Steve Reed made a promise to the farmers that wasn't going to happen. You then did that. Can you see why, when Chancellor stands up now, people kind of don't believe what she's going to say because she has been kind of misleading?
No, I don't accept the premise of that question at all. And of course, that wasn't in the manifesto, but it wasn't under active consideration in opposition because we didn't know the scale of the money we needed to raise quickly in order to deal with the mess that we inherited.
It's going to raise barely £1 billion quid.
But look, I just think there's a point of principle here. Like, I think most people at home would say, like, if you're going to inherit a huge farming estate, you should probably pay some inheritance tax. If you inherit some other big house or lots of money from your wealthy parents, then you should pay some inheritance tax. I think that's pretty
We can get
basic.
into the ideological argument about farmers another day, I suspect. But let's stick on Nick's because we're talking about growth still. Look, we can dispute the fact whether you're dishonest in the election. But what it is going to do, it's going to hit growth, isn't it?
Which bit? Sorry.
Putting a jobs tax, putting a national insurance rise on wages on employers is going to hurt growth. I know. I can give you their numbers. I know business people, small business owners, who have big plans for 2025 of expanding, and they're not going to be able to do that anymore because they're just going to have to spend the same amount of money standing still. That is hitting growth, isn't it?
So look, it's a cost for business. That's absolutely clear, but that's because we were protecting working people in the manifesto, a promise that we've honoured.
But not protecting working people if they're getting fired and getting laid off because the companies can't afford to keep them. Sainsbury's this week, 3,000 workers, boom, gone.
But importantly, on the business side, the scheme was designed in a way to try to protect smaller businesses. So we're told on the stats that over 50% of businesses in this country will either pay the same as they did before or less than they did before. But that does mean that bigger businesses, which have more cash flow, are having to burden some of those extra contributions.
They are, and some readers are going to lose their jobs because of this potentially. Does that not? You're not ashamed of that fact that you say you were going to protect working people, and the actions of your government has left them on the dole queue?
Well, I don't think that's the case because actually, if you look at either our work on helping people get into work, helping people with their payslip and the cost of living each month, which is a priority for your listeners trying to pay the bills every month. Do you think they'd have been happy if we said, do you know what, guys, it was such a bad mess we were left. We're going to break our promise and increase the amount of tax you pay every month in your payslip. That was not an acceptable thing to do.
Let's keep going down the list of things that people have sort of raised as concerns. The pension firms and the city, they love Rachel Reeves. They love you. You've kind of let those big guys off. This sort of high finance seem to have no problem with this government. And actually, the burden has instead been shifted onto people that produce things and employ people and small businesses and big employers, as you admit. Is there not a sort of contradiction as a Labour government that you seem to be perfectly comfortable sort of doing everything you can to help big pension funds invest, as you're doing today, while also whacking anyone else who's, striving, far below that level?
So what is it that we're doing with the pension funds? We're allowing them to invest in the UK and to invest more successfully. Why? Because it creates better pensions for pensioners. It creates more income. If you look at what pensioners get in this country compared to somewhere like Canada, where they've already poured their funds into mega funds, a Canadian pensioner gets paid way more in their pension than a UK pensioner because the pension's been more successful. That's a good thing for pensioners and for working people in this country. And look, the thing with the speech today that's really important, and you can talk to businesses about this, I get the next thing is difficult for bigger businesses, but actually when you talk to business leaders, there's a whole raft of things that they want to get seen done in this country so that they can invest and grow. And we've got the shared agenda for doing that.
But I can list, I don't have to do it, I don't have them here, but I could list dozens of reports in the last 4 months, really, that show that business confidence is hit, footfall is down, investment confidence is down. How are you going? You say you can't fix this overnight, but who should we believe when you say sort of businesses are happy and they want to engage with this government, or businesses who are letting people go and telling, surveys that their confidence is shot?
Well, look, there's no denying, as the Chancellor said today, we need to go further and faster. There's a whole host of things that we want to do to get growth back into the economy, which will be good for business and good for workers and good for the economy. And the speech today from the Chancellor was essentially setting out the enormous range of ambitions that we have to work with business to do that. And as you'll have seen from lots of business voices today, there's a lot of support for that. And a lot of shared
we see
ambition.
those press releases. But also another thing that business is concerned about, at the same time as you're whacking up their, taxing basically employing people, you're also hitting them with this massive workers' rights package, which they say is going to affect their hiring practices and it's going to hit growth. So is there not, again, it's a contradiction at the heart of this. You're saying all this great stuff, yet at the same time you're whacking businesses with a load more red tape.
I don't think there is any problem in saying that people who rely on insecure, low salary work deserve some protection at work. These are things about expanding.
But it's going to hit growth, isn't it?
No, I don't believe that.
Who do we believe? Do we believe, no offence, man, the man from the Treasury, or do we believe the employers who are saying this is going to affect us?
It's a different view about what type of country we should be. If you talk to the CBI, they think that growth comes from being able to grow insecure, vulnerable work. That is not good for people that are in insecure, vulnerable work, which is a lot of people across this country. We believe, actually, if you give some fundamental protections to people at work, and that is good for them and good for the economy.
At a cost of hitting GDP.
Look, let's look at the data when it comes, but I don't believe the premise of.
But if it is proven that it is having a direct effect on people, on hiring practices and businesses growing, will you scrap it?
I just don't believe it affects GDP. It's
why should we? I mean, no offence, man. Again, I'm not trying to be rude. You're a cabinet of professional politicians, lawyers, trade unionists, and the like. There isn't really any sort of big business characters in government. People have actually run large organisations. Why should we believe you over the people that have actually done that and have been at the coalface?
Yeah, and we're working with business leaders. We're not trying to run their businesses for them, but we do think it's right that people on low-income, insecure work get some protection at work. There is nothing wrong with that.
Let's go back to the charge sheet. Right, was it a mistake to delay the budget? It's the longest there's ever been between an election and a budget happening, and instead you filled it with this sort of doomsday talk and endless speeches and press conferences and clips on the media, basically talking down Britain, as we've said. Was that a mistake?
No, and do you know why? Because we're committed to doing budgets in the right way. That means that you need a forecast from the Independent Office of Budget Responsibility before you do a budget. One of the problems that Liz Truss had was that she raced ahead without the checks and balances and it all blew up. We were never going to do that again.
You went too far the other way, though. You filled a void. You've basically almost talked Britain into a recession.
No, that's nonsense. The OBR needs 10 weeks in order to do a
But you
forecast.
don't think you were too gloomy? In any way?
We were being honest.
Were you too gloomy?
No,
then why are you doing this speech today with, sort of full smiles on and everything's fine, when actually you've been saying the complete opposite for months?
Well, because we've cleared up the mess that we've inherited. We've drawn a line under it, and now we're getting on with our agenda. And if we weren't giving a growth speech today, I suspect on this show you'd be telling me where's all of your growth policy.
Well, perhaps that's my prerogative, though, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. When the budget did come, though, so, you say you cleaned up the mess, but have you? You've maxed borrowing to the absolute limit. You increased spending. You put up the taxes to the highest they've ever been. And the markets, they may have sort of bounced back a little bit in the last couple of weeks, but you're on notice, aren't you?
Look, there's no denying that we've got to get this country turned around. I mean, that's for sure. Public services
hiking massive amounts of spending and hiking tax and maxing out borrowing. Is that the way to do it?
Well, the option you had at the budget was either to cut tens of billions of pounds from the NHS and policing in our schools.
No, but that's not necessarily true.
It's totally true.
That's not true. That's a political choice you've made.
Exactly, that is the choice.
But you could have cut benefits.
We're actually getting a grip of the welfare bill anyway, but that's a separate issue because it takes longer to do. But that was the choice that we had to make at the budget. This year, direct in-year cuts to nurses, police officers and teachers.
But you lecture about being fiscally responsible, but your headroom has basically been annihilated. We are one global cough away from being in as bad a state in 2008 when the crisis hit, and we hadn't fixed the roof while the sun was shining. And where's the headroom? Where's the emergency kitty?
Would I have liked the last Conservative government to left the economy in a stronger position?
Government, but
you just said to me they didn't fix the roof while the sun was shining. I agree, they haven't. They've left a right old mess, and it's our job to deal with it. That's why
you're doubling down on it, though, aren't you?
No, we are fixing the mess that we inherited because you had to get a grip of public spending. The reason there was a £22 billion black hole was because the last government made all these promises to people and didn't put the money aside to pay for it. So you'd either cut that immediately, and we had to cut some in-year spending, or you have to get the money in, draw the line under it and say, look, we've now tidied that up and now getting on with it.
You've increased spending, you've increased taxes, you've pushed borrowings to the absolute limit, you've destroyed business confidence, you killed growth. This is all panic, isn't it? This is a good case to sack the Chancellor.
No, complete rubbish. Come on, look, you saw today a strong Chancellor in control of the agenda for this country.
Really? Or a panicking Chancellor pivoting and trying to U-turn?
Panicking. You're creating a fiction, Harry.
Would you like the job if she...
It was a great speech today, setting out this government's agenda, why the plan for change is working, the plan for change that the British people voted for, with a historic landslide for a Labour government. We're getting on with the job of the change that we promised in delivering, and that is a great thing for the country.
Do you want the job one day?
Job of what?
Chancellor, fixing it.
No. Rachel's a brilliant Chancellor, and she's going to be there.
And she's going to be there. She's going to be there at the next election all the way through.
That's what the Prime Minister said. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is she confident in that as well? She looks.
She should be.
Pretty worried for a couple of weeks.
No, she's totally fine.
A nest of everyone's happy. Yeah, everything's fine. Everything's happy. Everything's going swimmingly.
The job is hard. There's lots to do, but that's why she said we've got to go further and faster.
One question before you go. There's talk of a spring statement in the. It's coming in March.
Yep.
The OBR are going to update. The Chancellor's Day didn't rule out tax increases or cuts to spending at that. You've said it's not going to be two budgets a year, but you could be forced into one, couldn't you?
No, there's only going to be one full fiscal event, so kind of proper.
But will there be any spending or tax changes in March?
Well, the OBR forecast will update the figures that we will work to in the spending review, but we won't conclude the spending decisions until June the 11th.
You're not ruling out.
So we're in negotiations now with departments, and we'll confirm the numbers on the 11th of June.
Right, and then you'll presumably do the big spending cuts, which are clearly coming.
Well, the OBR forecast. Well, we don't know what the OBR forecast will say, but the OBR forecast in March, which the Chancellor will present to Parliament, so everyone can see it, will tell us what the updated figures look like, and that will be reflected in the spending plans that we then publish on the 11th of June.
All right, I think everyone's got that. And have you got the balls, really? I've asked the Prime Minister this, and he said it's true, but you're the guys that run the money. Have you guys really got the balls to cut the benefits bill? Your MPs are going to scream, the BBC are going to scream, the Guardian are going to scream. We're going to be austerities back. Have you got the guts to do it? Has Rachel Reeves got the guts to do it?
Do you know why this is an important Labour agenda? It's a progressive Labour agenda because the reason the benefits bill is growing so quickly is because there are lots of people who want to be in work, who can be in work, who are sick, but can't get seen in the NHS.
But it's going to be a painful cut, though, isn't it? It's going to be a big political, painful row.
The difference between us and the Tories is the Tories might just say, you're not getting any help. We're saying we're going to get you the help.
They didn't say that. That's why the benefits bill is so big. There was almost too much help.
Well, no, they tried, didn't they, to just do kind of clean cuts and say, look, you're just not getting it anymore. The difference with the Labour government is that we say, we're going to get you the help you need in the NHS or the mental health services you need. We're going to get you that short course. We're going to get you that training.
But do you have the political capital and the political will to dramatically reduce the benefits bill, which needs to be done?
Yes, we do. And look, and ultimately, if people can be in work and we help them to get into work, they need to be in work.
Will you come back and tell us how it's going?
Delighted to.
Darren Jones, Chief Secretary of the Treasury, thank you very much. That's it. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube so you won't miss a thing.